This Rangers Day started with an unexpected phone call. He never thought it could be true, but when he arrived, there really was an elephant in a tree. He tried to get the elephant out, but it simply refused to leave the tree. When the ranger found the shocking reason why, his face turned pale. Elephant refuses to leave tree. Rangers turn pale when they see why. And Emmanuel was driving around the nature reserve's perimeter, checking on the fences around it. There were no signs that his day would soon change, but then he got a bizarre phone call from a colleague. It seemed like a joke at first, but his colleague convinced him to come and take a look. An elephant in a tree. Emmanuel mumbled as a smile cracked on his face. Who could believe that, right? However, the way his colleague sounded over the phone was so sincere. Emmanuel shook his head as he would find out soon enough. See, it was only a short drive to the location his colleague described. But when he eventually arrived at the location, his mouth fell open as soon as he exited the car. How is that possible? He said with a stunned look on his face. When Emmanuel got closer, his worries increased as he saw it was just a baby elephant. Did it lose his herd? Both rangers looked at each other, stumped by this peculiar situation. Emmanuel told his colleague the elephant was probably stuck and couldn't get down. They had never heard of anything like this, so how could they possibly resolve this problem? After breaking their brains for a few minutes, they took action. Emmanuel walked back to his car and opened the trunk, hoping there was something they could use. The only thing that could be useful was the animal feed they used for luring animals. This could do the trick. He mumbled when he took a bag to the tree, not knowing what would happen next. The rangers held out the food in front of the baby elephant, but to their disappointment, he didn't respond. "Come on, buddy," Emmanuel said with a soft voice. But the elephant didn't move an inch. They had to think of something else, but what? Moments later, Emmanuel gasped. How could he forget? He was so flabbergasted by the situation. He forgot the solution was already on the reserve. If he remembered correctly, a team was transporting a rhino into the reserve using a crane. If they were still here, they could help. The Rangers were hopeful of this idea, unaware of how it would turn out. Emmanuel grabbed the portable radio out of the car and contacted the headquarters. It turned out he was right, and the special team was still in the reserve. He asked for their contact information, and after some explaining and convincing, he managed to get their help. They were coming right away. Emmanuel and his colleague got their hopes up when they saw the team approach. The team brought a special crane that they could use to lift the elephant out of the tree. It was a huge struggle as the elephant wasn't sedated like usual, but eventually they managed to get it. Everyone celebrated the moment. The elephant was lifted out of the tree and dangling in the air. "Almost there, buddy," Emmanuel mumbled as he watched anxiously. The lift continued without any problems, and moments later, the baby elephant was safely on the ground. Emmanuel and his colleague were setting him free when something unexpected happened. The elephant was surprisingly calm and harmless when the rangers approached, but everything changed when they loosened the bonds. Emmanuel was surprised by how quickly such a big animal could move. The moment the baby felt it was free, it ran back toward the tree and climbed up it again, leaving everyone perplexed. This shook the whole team. Until now, they wondered how the elephant got in there and assumed it was stuck there, but it turned out it climbed up there out of free will. Emmanuel looked at his colleague in bewilderment. "Why does it go in the tree?" he asked, but no one had an answer. The silence was interrupted by the sound of an approaching SUV. Another ranger got out, and Emmanuel approached him, not knowing the ranger was carrying some worrisome news. "There's been a break into the reserve last night," he said, causing Emmanuel to frown. A break-in. This day just kept getting better and better. This urgent matter momentarily kept the elephant in the tree out of Emmanuel's mind. He went to his Jeep and grabbed the tablet. If there were a break-in, he would be able to see something on the camera feeds. Emmanuel opened the feeds, not expecting what he was going to see. Where was it? He asked his colleague, and the ranger explained what he had seen. Emmanuel quickly found the right camera and rewinded the footage until they saw something, and that's when they saw it. The fence was being torn down, and a group of poachers entered the reserve. This wasn't good. Emmanuel called over the other ranger, and they discussed the situation. Apart from the ranger who had just arrived, they had seen nothing unusual or anything that indicated a break-in. Emmanuel stared blankly at the screen, and questions filled his mind. Were the poachers still here? Did they take something? To answer the questions in his mind, Emmanuel needed to follow the poachers on the feed. It was late at night, and the cameras only covered part of the reserve, so it was hard to track them, but with much effort and some luck, he managed to do it. They watched the feed breathlessly. No, Emmanuel whispered as he foresaw what was going to happen. The poachers were stealthy, approaching a herd of elephants. This wasn't going to end well, but then all of a sudden, the pack scattered and ran. The poachers must have been too loud. The rangers let out a sigh of relief until Manuel felt a hand on his shoulder, and one colleague bent over and pointed at the screen. There was no mistaking it. He was pointing at the baby elephant who was now up in the tree. What was going on? They saw the poachers approach it. How was it going to get away? The baby elephant tried to escape, but the poachers scared it with torches and pointy spears. It was trapped. It slowly but surely, the circle around the baby elephant got smaller and smaller. How did it end up in the tree? There was no way out. But then something no one expected happened. Suddenly the circle broke and panic ensued. For a moment, the rangers didn't know what was happening, but then a female elephant entered the screen. She ran around the circle defending her child, and the ranger saw the baby run toward the tree and climb in it. But that was not the end. The rangers stare at the screen as they watch the poachers easily capture the other elephant. It's the mother. Emmanuel gasped as he realized the poachers used the baby as bait to capture an adult elephant. They knew the mother would try and defend her baby and sacrifice herself if needed. This was bad. They silently watched the poachers leave the reserve, and Emmanuel closed the camera feed. What had this day turned into? First, there was an elephant stuck in a tree, and now an elephant was taken. How were they going to get her back or get the baby out of the tree? Then it hit him. Emmanuel felt the blood disappear out of his face as he turned pale. That's it. The elephant kept going back into the tree because he thought they were poachers. The baby elephant just wanted to feel safe, and that's where he was safe before. A plan started forming in his head. They had two problems to solve, but one was more urgent than the other. We need to focus on the mother elephant, he said to the other rangers. Then something came in mind. What if the baby elephant left the tree if they brought the mother back? It was crucial to find the mother. The first thing they needed to do was notify the police. They were their best chance to learn more about the poachers, and they needed answers quickly. Emmanuel grabbed his phone and dialed the number. They will be here soon, he said to his colleagues, all unaware of what the police would have to share. As anticipated, the police arrived not much later. Emmanuel was surprised to see that they came with 3 cars and a dozen officers, but was thankful they took this very seriously. After introductions, he told the sheriff what happened precisely and how the poachers worked. Then the sheriff said something unexpected. The sheriff carefully listened to Emmanuel and watched the camera footage. He nodded understandably and wrote a few things down before surprising Emmanuel. I was afraid of this, he said, after which he told the ranger they recognized the way these poachers worked and knew exactly who they were. But to this day, they haven't been able to get close to them. The sheriff continued to explain that these poachers had already broken into several reserves nearby, and that's why they were able to get here so quickly. Emmanuel didn't know what he heard, and his hope of finding the mother elephant faded away. Emmanuel became frustrated. It was vital that they caught the poachers and brought back the elephant. What can we do? He asked, after which he called over the other rangers. They were all at his disposal and ready to assist in any way possible. Then the sheriff said something remarkable. We've never been at the place of the crime this fast, but the sheriff said with a hopeful tone. Emmanuel was taken aback. The police arrived fast after he called, but the break-in happened last night. So why did the sheriff sound hopeful? But then the sheriff told him they usually arrived after the second day. This caused the rangers to all look confused at one another. Second day, what did he mean by that? Then Emmanuel gasped. Do you mean? He started, but the sheriff interrupted him and explained that the poachers usually struck twice before being found out, before which they were already gone. Emmanuel looked at the stunned faces of his colleagues and then thought of something. If they struck twice before being found out, wouldn't that mean they come to the reserve again tonight? That would be their chance. He shared his thoughts with the group, and they realized they had to devise a plan fast. Emmanuel assumed the poachers would come in through the hole they made last night, but the sheriff told them the poachers always enter somewhere different. They had the advantage of knowing that the poachers would come, but not where they would strike. So they decided it was best to set a trap for the poachers. Let's see, Emmanuel mumbled as he rolled out the map of the nature reserve. He marked several points on the map and told the sheriff those were the locations of the cameras they had placed. They quickly came to the same conclusion on where to set the trap: the riverbank. The riverbank was the best location because they easily block animals using tree trunks and other materials. They spent the whole day luring and herding elephants and rhinos toward the riverbank. Once they were satisfied with the numbers, they were ready to start with the second part of the plan. For the second part of the plan, the rangers and officers needed to camouflage themselves around the location, which was a pretty easy task due to the amount of vegetation around the riverbank. Emmanuel watched over the process and helped if necessary, but eventually everything was in place and the trap was set. Now we wait. Emmanuel said with a sigh after they worked the whole day to set the trap. Oh, and night fell and the waiting began. They set the trap, but there was no certainty the poachers would come here or even show up at all. Emmanuel grabbed his tablet and opened the camera feeds when he caught some movement on one of the cameras at the fence.
Look.
He said to his colleagues while pointing at the screen. They squinted their eyes. Where was that? They then gasped in harmony as they realized where that was. It was the fence directly behind them. The poachers were close. With high anticipation, they followed the poachers' movement. Emmanuel's heart bonked in his chest. Come on, get in, he whispered. When they saw the poachers enter the reserve at the right place, they had to stop themselves from making too much noise. They heard the poachers coming closer and closer, and then the rangers saw the poachers pass them by, and Emmanuel could swear he saw some officers move between the vegetation. Moments later, the trap was sprung. Now, the sheriff yelled, and flashlights appeared everywhere. This is panic from all the sudden ruckus, but soon realized there was no way out. It was over for them. The poachers were caught red-handed, and the arrest went swiftly, causing a satisfactory feeling to fall upon Emmanuel. A feeling that suddenly disappeared as he remembered something. The mother elephant. All this worry about capturing the poachers caused him to forget about it. He needed to get the location of the poachers' camp. The poachers realized the best thing they could do was collaborate, so they immediately gave up their camp's location. Come on. Emmanuel yelled while gesturing for his colleagues to come with him. He started the truck and drove away with the police in his wake, not knowing what they would find there. The camp turned out to be not too far from the reserve, but when they arrived, it appeared to be deserted. No people or cages, and most importantly, no elephant. Worrisome thoughts shot through Emmanuel's mind. Were they too late? Was it all for nothing? Then he heard a sound. He heard the rattling of chains and low-breathing sounds, and they seemed to come from behind some large bushes. Emmanuel walked toward the bushes and found they could be moved entirely. He gasped as he removed them. Behind it stood a cage with the mother elephant in it. They got her. The rangers could transport the elephant back with the truck. The team used to transport the rhino into the reserve. It was time to find out if their plan to get the baby out of the tree would work. With good hope, they returned to where this unusual day started, unaware of what would happen. The rangers lifted the cage to the ground and opened it, after which the mother elephant slowly stepped out. Emmanuel had turned his back to the tree briefly and heard a loud noise coming from it. When he turned around, he saw the baby elephant reunite with his mother. What a day, Emmanuel exclaimed while they celebrated the moment. He had never dreamed that everything would work out perfectly. They managed to get the mother elephant back alive and well, and thanks to that, the baby elephant got out of the tree. Then the sheriff came to see him again. The sheriff thanked him from the bottom of his heart for the help in catching the poachers, as they couldn't have done it without the rangers' help. Emmanuel didn't know what to say and smiled. Eventually, he told the sheriff he could say the same about him, and the two of them smiled.